I'm Tom from DIY Life Tech, and this is a look at 4 generations of Fitbit smartwatches all together. I've been a Fitbit user for over a decade, and I've gotten basically all of the smartwatches that they've introduced. So over here on the left, we start with one of their first smartwatches. This is the Fitbit Surge. This was released in 2014. And you can see it's big, it's clunky, it's got this little tiny monochrome screen, but it was quite revolutionary at the time. You had a heart rate tracker on the back here, so it would be tracking your heart rate on your skin, shining little lights in there, optical heart rate tracking, and it also even had a built-in GPS. So a big deal at the time, these physical buttons on the side, definitely not to today's style standards, but for 2014, this was a pretty impressive piece of hardware. Then we moved on to the Fitbit Ionic. This was a later model and basically just updated the feature set on here. We started to see things like more advanced heart rate tracking. You can see on the back here. You also started to get some basic apps, similar button scheme, again, physical buttons, clicky little buttons on the side here, and a little bit sleeker of a design on the watch itself versus when we were looking here at the Surge, where it's really pretty solid and clunky. You can see also we got interchangeable bands. The band is actually almost like riveted on there, versus we're now able here with the Ionic to start to swap out the bands. But there's definitely a challenge with the Ionic, which is that it ultimately turned out that the battery in here could actually get too hot and cause burns. So Fitbit recently actually recalled all of this device. So I'm going to have to send mine back to Fitbit. But this was, at the time, before we knew about that problem, a good upgrade to the original Surge. Then we go to the Versa, and this is a later watch. This is where we're really starting to get into the more modern smartwatch style. And this is the original Versa. We still have the physical buttons. They didn't really change anything about that. As you can see between these different models, all of them have 2 buttons on the right, 1 button on the left, almost exactly the same. This is sleeker, it's smaller, it's got more integrated sensors here in the Versa. They've done away with the GPS, it now syncs from the phone, but this had a lot more apps built into it where you could do, things like Starbucks and call an Uber and everything from your watch. And then finally we get to the newest generation. There's been a couple different versions of these, by the way. So there's now a Versa 3, and it's become more and more advanced over time. But this is the original Versa smartwatch here. Also interchangeable bands on that one. And then we've got the Fitbit Sense, and this is the most up-to-date Fitbit smartwatch. You can see much sleeker. It's got a much bigger set of sensors in here. The Versa, I believe, did have a blood oxygen sensor. You get that here, but you also get all kinds of things like skin temperature sensing on the Fitbit Sense, and an EDA sensor and ECG for doing an echocardiogram, or electrocardiogram rather. So much more advanced features on the Fitbit Sense, and you can see comparing the very first Fitbit smartwatch, the Surge, from 2014, to the Fitbit Sense, which is in 2020. You can see there's quite a progression in the hardware here from the oldest to the newest. And just putting these two together, the one thing I really wish they kept though is that physical button scheme on the side. Now with the Fitbit Sense, you have one, it's called a solid state button on the side of the watch. I'm actually holding this upside down. It's this little button on the side here, and it's a little bit finicky. I really like the clicky buttons that you got that were basically unchanged with these other watches. So maybe they'll bring that back, probably not. But you can see, again, 4 generations of Fitbit smartwatches together here in one place, and you can start to visualize the progression with a little bit of an issue here with the Ionic, but otherwise a nice progression in time with the Fitbits. If you found this helpful in any way, please subscribe to my channel. It really helps.